Good morning, Baltimore. It is Thursday, August 27th. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of the Early Birds podcast. I'm your host, Matt Weyrich, alongside Ravens reporter Sam Cohn, who, as we are sitting here right now, we just got notification that at NFL just picked up Sam's video. Sam, how does it feel to be big time?
I mean, this is a first for me. I don't know if you hear there's a helicopter flying above me. Yeah, pretty neato. It was a video of Lamar. Okay, this picked up a lot of steam on social media. I took the video and posted it because I thought it was funny. I think any of us who are there at practice every day see Lamar again every day, just like playing catch, and he'll make these kind of weird one-handed catches. And guys talk about, Isaiah Likely used to do this, Jacoby Lane's catches, all these guys with great hands. And sometimes not enough love for the way Lamar catches the ball. Is just like, it's one of those things that's very simple, very casual. He looks so comfortable with the ball. And today I actually said to someone, there was another reporter at the joint practice on Wednesday who was also taking some video, and Derrick Henry threw the ball about 15 yards, I guess, downfield to where Lamar was standing, and he caught it, and it was kind of a picture perfect, like, lofted throw. And I turned out, I was like, that would have made it for a cool video, because a lot of fans have replied or quote tweeted my video and been like, Derrick Henry to throw into Lamar at some point this season? Are we going to get a Derrick Henry touchdown throw? So, yeah, I don't know. It's cool to see just a reminder of how athletic and talented and comfortable Lamar is on a football field.
Yeah, one might say built like a wide receiver.
Oh, come on, Matt. Come
the
on.
low-hanging fruit. I had to.
That's what I was going to say. That's what everyone was saying in my comments. So, like, not at me, but like making those kinds of references. I was like, that is not what I was trying to do with this post. But
no, you're just all of your tweets are actually just subtweeting Bill Polian.
Yeah.
Low key.
Exactly.
But yeah, fun show for you guys today. We have Jaylinn Hawkins joining the show. Sam and Josh chatted with him after practice the other day, so we'll be cutting to that in just a minute. And then on the other side of the interview, we'll be doing a full Ravens 53-man roster projection, with the final rosters being trimmed down this weekend following their final preseason game against the Washington Commanders. So stick around on the other side of the interview for that. No Orioles today. Orioles are on the road as we are recording this here on Wednesday afternoon. They've only played one game since we last recorded on Sunday. So Josh and I, on the episode on Monday, we'll do a deep dive on this ongoing road trip, with the Orioles having got off on a nice start there on Tuesday night against the St. Louis Cardinals with a big offensive explosion there. So look forward to that with Josh this weekend. All right, Sam. Jaylinn Hawkins, Ravens safety, who joined the team on a 2-year, $10 million deal this offseason. After making a Super Bowl run with the New England Patriots, now figures to play a pretty prominent role in this Ravens secondary. What was it like chatting with him the other day?
Yeah, he was great. I think some of the interesting things that fans are going to see as the season wears on, and also some of the things we talked about, are him being on this team really frees up Kyle Hamilton to do the things that Kyle Hamilton does best. So we talked a little bit about playing with Kyle. We talked a little bit about, he's a guy who makes a Super Bowl run but doesn't win the big one. Comes to Baltimore, a bunch of guys who have felt like they're on the precipice of doing that. How they've kind of come to him and asked questions and looked to him about what that might look like. One of the questions, I think Josh had asked this one, is like, Mike Vrabel, obviously different circumstances, but like his first year coaching in New England, first year coaching in a new place, what are some of the things that he did well that maybe Jesse Minzer can do well or is starting to do well that could put him on a similar track? It's really tough to get to a Super Bowl in that first year. So I hope everyone enjoys the interview. The only other two things I'll say: one, I owe our listeners an apology. My whatever technical skills, They failed us. Matt, credit to you. Say our interview was salvageable and it sounds okay, but the audio is imperfect, so that one is on me. And to that point, we had to cut out the first minute-ish of the interview. So I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge, one, we recorded this on Tuesday, which was Jaylinn Hawkins' birthday. So we started by asking him, one, hey Jaylinn, happy birthday. What is the best gift he's ever received? And he just talked about how his wife, not fiance, I believe they're married, is the best gift giver. And she's always the one coming up with creative and interesting gifts. I think he said she one time like wrapped a car like with wrapping paper. So she's a really, really good gift giver. She's always the one giving him the best gifts in his life. So it was nice to chat with Jaylinn on his birthday. And then the bulk of the interview you're going to hear is a lot of football stuff. And then at the end, we play a fun game where we kind of rapid fire one word to describe a bunch of guys on his team. And we had some fun with that near the end. So excited for everyone to listen in.
Jaylinn, when you first came here, you had said that when you were going through free agency that Jesse Minter was a real selling point for you. What did you see in him then, and how has that kind of manifested throughout training camp that affirms that those expectations?
I just seen, the body of work. The body of work that he's put out, especially with the Chargers. Analyzing some of their film, seeing the stuff that they've done, and I just fell in love with it. And then just having a conversation with him, during that time, I was just like, okay, this feels reassuring. And, I just prayed about it and trusted it. And now we're here, man. And I've been seeing a lot of it, a lot of good things. Obviously our defense is playing lights out right now, especially in the preseason, which is really cool seeing those young guys go out there and exemplify what it means, to play in this defense. So, everything's just been manifested so far. You just continuously, working, as the season starts, just 1 week at a time. You got to just keep harping on the things. But it's been good.
Yeah, just to jump off that point, we heard Kyle Hamilton say that he felt like, this is a week in training camp. He's like, Jaylenn's kind of learning all of this in record time. Everybody's learning stuff. And he felt like you in particular were learning quickly. What's it been like acclimating for you? How has that process been for you at this defense?
Yeah, man, it's been cool, man. It's been a cool thing. I kind of just been going at it one day at a time. Obviously, being myself and just using my strengths and learning, everybody else's strengths and learning how to put that together. I feel like it's the biggest thing, especially playing on a defense like this, where you have a lot of good players, a lot of different characters. You got Cam Starks playing right next to me. I got, you got corners that's locked down. It's a lot, So the biggest thing about that is you got all these strong points, man. It's about playing together. So it's been really fun and cool dealing with these guys, man. Happy I'm here.
Man, you were a playmaker on a team that had such a resurgent turnaround in year one with Mike Vrabel last year. Do you notice any similarities or I guess takeaways with Jesse Minter kind of coming in here trying to make that same effect to get back to the top in a pretty quick time frame?
Yeah, for sure. That's the emphasis all day, man. You come in here to win. I feel like he's been implementing that to the team, the defense, offense, everything. I feel like that's the biggest thing. The way he's been running things has been so cool. He's been real intentional. He actually cares about us. I feel like it's in players and seeing the stuff that he does for us is cool, man. So I think the biggest thing to that is, keep doing what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, man, and the outcomes will be what they are for real.
Are your teammates asking you about that Super Bowl run or things that you learned along the way to just gain any kind of edge or information they can from you?
Yeah, of course. They talk to me about everything like that, but we're in a new year, so we're looking to, win ourselves, But obviously, though, questions do come along and,
just what was it like, man? That's what they want to know, right?
Just the process of things and, to get there and everything like that. And that's cool, man. But, I feel like the biggest thing is to get there. And that's something I've been doing. So, here, obviously, that's the goal is to win, So.
All right, so you've got a couple teammates who can help you win. And I know you don't like talking about this play specifically, but you have forced a fumble on Derrick Henry. You had a quarterback hit on Lamar. What's it like being teammates with them now? Being able to call them your guys and walking in that locker room and being able to see them.
It's a relief. I ain't got to play against them. I got asked this question so many times. I'm like, man, y'all understand game planning. Going into it, it's just you don't know what to expect. Especially family, they can do anything at any moment. So you got to kind of always be alert. They, you got a good group, man. Smart, so. I'm just glad they're part of my team. I'm a part of this team, and we're, so together, and we go to war together. So that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. Jaylinn, I want to go back to, we were talking about Kyle Hamilton before. He's the ultimate, quote unquote, chess piece. Defensive coordinators moved him around in crazy ways. For you as another safety, does that make your job easier, or are there challenges of having to figure out kind of what that might look like in different schemes and trying different things with that defense?
I feel like that'll make things easier.
Yeah? How so?
That frees up everybody. You got a player who can do everything. It's okay, I just got to focus on this job. He can take over this. Okay, I'll focus on this job. You know, so like I said earlier, like having a lot of good players and a lot of players with a lot of attributes and strong, good players, that just helps you focus on what you got to do and focus on your strengths and get out the push.
All right, coming towards the end here, man. As a veteran in the league, you've seen plenty of training camp superstars. Who's been like maybe a surprise for you on offense or defense during your camp?
Ooh. There's been a lot of guys balling out, man. Johnson's been balling out. 12 pieces on 12 pieces and balling out that quarterback. Defense.
12 piece, that's a good one. Joe
Fagnano.
Fagnano.
12 pieces.
Somebody write that down.
Yeah. Jonte been doing this thing. I feel like all the guys been doing this thing. Defense, everybody on this thing. Everybody, all the youngest, especially the shaped ones. Deontay's been balling out. Kayvon been good. Keon been balling out the nickel. Chandler been balling out. TJ, Dean, like Silas got a kid. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like
yeah,
everybody's
grocery list
eating.
of players.
Everybody's eating. So it's kind of hard for me to give, but like I just feel like everybody's doing a good job right now, especially in this phase where we're at.
Speaking of just this phase where we're at, you guys had a joint practice in Minnesota last week. By the time folks are listening to this and watching this, you'll have had a practice with the Commanders.
Yeah.
As a veteran, what do you guys get out of that? And just maybe a simple question, but in your shoes where you're not playing in the preseason, how excited do you get to like, let's just finally play these? Like, let's just play someone in a different
you get an itch.
jersey?
You know what I'm saying? I was telling Ro the other day, I was like, man, I'm getting an itch. Like, you know, like even practicing each other, it's like, okay, now it's time to play with somebody else. But it's always good, man. It's always good to get good work, especially in practice. Where you can go, be physical, do all the things, but also keep everybody safe, keep everybody healthy. Come in there, you know, the one-on-ones, the team settings, different practice periods and stuff like that versus another team, and I feel like that just helps.
Yeah. Jaylinn, you gave us a list. We're going to give you a list now. We're going to end here rapid fire style. I want you to give one word to describe these teammates. I'm going to run through them, all right?
Let's get it.
Kyle Hamilton.
Like personality?
Whatever you want. What's one word that comes to mind?
word
Word
to describe
association, one word to describe
Sam
that
is
guy.
the GOAT. Goat.
Malachi Starks.
Another GOAT, but it's still GOAT. Yeah, it's still GOAT.
Nate Wiggins.
Turn, my dog.
Marlon Humphrey.
Marlon?
Marlon.
Ooh. Turn on another planet. You know what I'm saying?
On the podcasting planet.
I'm excited to hear this one. Keon Martin.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Ooh, I would say Keon. Precise and strapping.
Alright.
Like, he locked in. But he cool, though. But then he go out there and just go crazy. Like, he's chill. Funny, though, too. But, yeah, I said he's precise in his work and what he does. He's scrappy in that place.
I feel like this might be a similar one. Keandre Jackson.
Oh, dude, another turn one. That's my dog. He overly turned. He gotta get it.
TJ Tampa.
Ooh, smooth, dude. Smooth. I'll lock you up, smooth.
The rookie, Chandler Rivers.
Ooh. Little assassin. Quiet.
Assassin.
Don't say nothing. Do his thing.
Yeah. Josh, want to throw any more in here before we end here?
Yeah, we're going to end on the offensive side. Lamar.
Ooh. Go.
Offensive good.
Offensive go. I'll give him the offensive go.
All right, last one, Derrick Henry.
Yeah. Unicorn.
Unicorn.
It's like great. Like that.
Maybe safety Jaylinn Hawkins. Thank you so much for doing this, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, man. Happy birthday.
Thank you, bro.
All right, Sam. So pretty fun interview with Jaylinn there. As you walked away from that, what just kind of stood out to you about what he said and what he was able to share?
Yeah, I think, I mean, the biggest one we talked about, and again, like Josh had kind of brought this up as we were preparing, of like, it's worth asking someone like Jaylinn, when he's played in a couple different systems, to play with someone like Kyle Hamilton. I think some of it, like from the outsider's perspective, like we talk about he's this chess piece and you can move him around and do so many different things with him. And Josh brought up an interesting question, which was, yes, like so many guys say it's so much easier to play the position with him, but are there things that can be challenging about how he moves in different ways that feels like it kind of rewrites a lot of the scheme? It was interesting to hear him say, like, no, it really is a lot easier because there's just like a lot less for him to worry about or think about because you have someone on the field who can just do everything, and it takes a lot of the pressure off. So I thought it was an interesting thought experiment to kind of have that conversation of like, is it like, are there ways that it makes it challenging even though he helps your defense? But Jaylinn was pretty adamant that like at the end of the day, like everything he does just makes everyone's job easier because he just knows what's going on everywhere, and he's someone who can move around different ways and let them have some fun on defense.
Yeah, and hearing how Jesse Minter and others have described him this offseason, it really seems like they're kind of treating it as they have 3 starting safeties in this secondary with Hawkins, not just giving a spell to Malachi Starks and Kyle Hamilton, but filling very specific roles and working out of different coverages and things like that. So it does seem like we are going to be seeing a lot of him on the field. And a guy
Definitely.
that, because of the injury he's had during training camp, we haven't really seen and heard a whole lot from him, and Ravens fans maybe aren't yet super familiar with him. So very awesome to hear from him there and kind of get a better sense of who the Ravens have in one of their really under the radar offseason acquisitions is Jaylinn Hawkins. So without further ado, let's kick it over here now to the bulk of the meat of the episode. Let's talk Ravens final roster projection here. We have the trim down day. Is it on Saturday or Sunday, Sam, that they have to cut the roster?
Sunday night.
Sunday night.
Evening.
The Ravens have to get down. Yeah, down to 53 players. We've been talking about some roster battles throughout camp at different positions, but now is where the Ravens really have to decide who they want to keep, who they want to try to pass through waivers, and who might be a better placement on their either IR or practice squad or anything but the active roster. So we're going to kind of go position group by position group here, talking about different things. One thing I did want to acknowledge at the top is Nnamdi Madubuike factor. He's maybe the biggest question mark at this point. Was activated off the PUP list, but has not participated in full team drills through this point of camp as of Wednesday afternoon. Maybe he gets into a couple of drills here at the end, but we are really seeing him working off to the side, working in one-on-ones. So we are not sure if he's going to be placed on IR or not. I think for the sake of our projection here, we have him on IR to start the year, which would mean he misses 4 games. But obviously, as we kind of go through groups, we could acknowledge that, if he does take a roster spot, maybe that means somebody over here gets chopped off. There are some, obviously domino effects to that.
It's just at this point in late August, you're through 2 preseason games, and the most that he has done is 1 or 2 days of hitting the sled. He has not done any live stuff, any team drills. Like, you're just over 2 weeks out from the season opener from week 1. It's just really, really hard to believe that he'll be ready for full live contact in time for that. They've been pretty, mum's the word on his status and whether he'll be ready. Jesse has been nothing but optimistic in his progression. But at this point, it's just hard to see a world where he's fully ready to play in time for week 1. So I think it's a fair expectation or projection that he'll likely start the season on IR. Obviously, things could change. He could have some kind of miraculous ramp up very quickly. But I think it's fair to assume that that's the direction we're heading at this point.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, when it is anything to do with the neck, they're going to take things slowly. So it kind of has been maybe the expectation all along. Just the fact that he was activated off the PUP list to start camp was a surprise to everybody, I think. But as we've seen throughout camp, they really have not gotten him into full team drills. And I think that's the big determining factor here for a guy that is clearly going to play a huge part on this team upon his return. So let's start with quarterback, Sam, where there is basically no drama. Lamar Jackson, Tyler Huntley are who we have down. And by the way, we are going off of our colleague Josh Tolentino's 53-man projection here. We have some thoughts maybe either way on some different spots, end of camp battles, but we're going to go off of his full list here. So as I said, starting at QB, Lamar, Tyler Huntley. We did see a lot of good things from Joe Fagnano this preseason, as we probably will again on Friday against the Commanders. But at the end of the day, they're able to slide him probably onto the practice squad and ultimately keep a roster spot open as opposed to use it on a third QB.
Yes, the extent of what we've learned or seen or is interesting about this position group is that Joe Fagnano has played great through through 2 preseason games. He's played well enough to kind of secure that QB3 spot. That QB3 spot will almost certainly be on the practice squad. So Joe Fagnano sticking around, which is funny to think about kind of how far he's come between, from being overshadowed by Diego Pavia as one of 2 UDFA quarterbacks. And then even after Pavia was let go, Skylar Thompson was the guy, and it took a Skylar Thompson injury to give Fagnano a chance, and he made the most of it. So expect him to be QB3. But yes, like you said, no drama here.
No. Let's move over to running backs, where Josh projects the Ravens to carry 4. Derrick Henry, let me pull up my list here. Sorry, Justice Hill. Man, I'm sorry, everything just closed out. Rasheen Ali and Adam Randall. Sorry, my browser just closed out. Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, Rasheen Ali, and Adam Randall here. There has been some talk that maybe the Ravens only carry 3 running backs, Sam, but with Adam Randall being the owner's choice draft pick, you have to feel like they're probably going to carry him. And we have seen some things from him that are on the positive side in camp.
Certainly. Definitely not nothing that he was the owner's draft pick as to keeping him around. But at the end of the day, like, your RB3, and I guess if you keep a 4th, RB4 spots are largely going to be like, can you give something in terms of depth if a guy goes down, or contribute in the run game? But more seriously, like, can you be a significant contributor on special teams? That's been the bulk of Rasheen Ali's career, and he's been an ascendant guy. And, if they're able to keep 4, then Adam Randall is certainly going to be the one to squeeze in the back door of the roster. I think he's someone who is further down the list, but the way that the roster gymnastics seems to be able to shake out, it should allow the Ravens to take 4. Also worth acknowledging, like, they're not taking a fullback. Without Pat Ricard in tow, they're going to have they have the extra spot to take a 4th running back. So there were questions of, Rasheen Ali missed all of last week with an undisclosed injury. So I think, I'd written this at one point, that there was the question of, if this is serious, does he go on, season on the IR to start the season, and then you take 3 running backs, and how does that sort of change your calculus, because they get 2. They have room to put 2 guys on IR to start the season. But yeah, I would agree with what Josh has here. 4 running backs start the year, and predominantly because, 1, you don't have a fullback, and 2, the O-line, which we'll get to in a minute.
Yeah, certainly carrying 4 running backs, not necessarily the, I'd say, like, the front office sharps don't love carrying 4 running backs across the league, that prefer to use that roster spot on another spot. But I think with the way everything is shaken out, and also with Randall coming in and challenging Ali, but neither of them really separating from one another, I think it kind of makes sense to carry both of them and see what you have here as you rotate both of them in throughout the start of the season. Wide receiver, we have 6 here listed, and I think it is a pretty safe 6. Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Jacoby Lane, Elijah Surratt, Tez Walker, and LeJontay Wester, the return specialists. I feel like this has been the group that we've kind of looked at throughout camp. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sam. Now, they obviously did bring in Chris Moore, who maybe was a wrinkle there, but it looks like he is going to be the odd man out of this group.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth there. I mean, they bring in a veteran in Chris Moore to challenge for that spot. In the same way we just talked about Rasheen Ali as a special teams guy, LeJontay Wester's role on this roster is to be their punt returner. He's a guy they love at punt returner. That is a solidified position for him, and he's also seen an uptick in reps in the passing game. And candidly, he's had a really solid training camp, far better than his training camp last year as a rookie in terms of what he's been able to do in the offense. On top of his abilities on special teams. So yeah, they bring in Chris Moore to kind of challenge there. He has not really stood out in any meaningful way that makes you question this 6. I think this is candidly the 6 they're going to run with, and all the interesting questions are the pecking order with where this falls. Obviously, Zay Flowers, who has practiced off to the side this week, but Jesse Minter sounds pretty optimistic and confident he'll be fine for week 1. He said that's something minor that we don't know yet. Rashad Bateman obviously dealing with legal issues, but it's unclear whether he'll face any repercussions for that. The 2 rookies have been really solid. Tez Walker has played well in fits and starts, and like we said, LeJontay. So the questions are more about the order of those 6 as opposed to who might be 6A, 6B, or 7, or who might sneak in. It's a solid 6.
Yeah, and just do want to mention on the Bateman situation, we talked about it on a previous episode. The TMZ headlines have been a bit misleading and kind of been all over the place. There has been accusations recanted and things like that. So no formal charges appear to be brought against him right now. Does not seem like that is happening. Obviously, the legal system will play itself out before any NFL investigation or anything like that kind of takes action in terms of suspension or things like that. We see things like this happen all the time where it's not until the following season where there are any punishments handed out. So my guess, purely speculation, but at this point, we won't see any suspension here in 2026. Maybe this is something that drags into next year, but where things stand right now, the entire case kind of seems on shaky ground. So we'll see if that actually ends up becoming anything tangible. Tight end. A little bit different looking group here. Obviously have Mark Andrews at the top, but compared to last year, everything else overhauled. We have 4 tight ends listed. No surprises again, but with Mark Andrews, Durham Smythe, and the 2 rookies, Matt Hibner and Josh Cuevas. We've seen both Hibner and Cuevas have some nice individual receiving performances here in the preseason so far. Smythe, the guy that Declan Doyle is very familiar with from over in Chicago, a blocking tight end, and then Mark Andrews, the obvious clear-cut tight end 1 on this roster. Sam, as you just look at this group, do you look at the inexperience as being something that is one of the bigger question marks about this roster?
The inexperienced tight end, certainly. I mean, it's something we've talked about all offseason. When you think about the 4, and this is where I want to bring this up, if you look at what we have for the offense, and we're going to get to the O-line next, we have 9 guys on our roster projection for the offensive line, with Danny Pinter now going on the season-ending injured reserve. That means 9 plus 2 QBs is 11, plus 8 is 19, plus 6 is 25. So right now we have 25 guys on offense. The Ravens have typically gone with a 25, 25, and 3 split. 25 offense, 25 defense, 3 on special teams. That's kind of been the way they've liked to do things over these last few years. Jesse Minter was asked about it on Wednesday. Is that something, a conversation he's having with Eric DaCosta about, is that something they'd like to stick with, having that kind of continuity about that split? And he was pretty non-committal, which I think was maybe to be expected because things can change. But the way he worded it was when you get down to the last few, it's really just a matter of your best available guys. And does someone get left off for the sake of someone else because, you take your best, your 51st, 52nd, or 53rd guys are your best available guys. So as of right now, the way that we've kind of laid out the numbers and the roster projection calculus, I think it makes sense that they have 4. It also doesn't feel like, Hibner and Cuevas can in some ways contribute to this offense. Declan Doyle really likes the use of tight ends. We've seen Durham Smythe slide into that fullback role. We've seen Hibner and Cuevas both respectively play well in 2 preseason games. And obviously the veteran and Mark Andrews. So is there a world where one of these guys, one of the rookies, kind of gets left off the table for sake of someone else and ends up on the practice squad? That's entirely a possibility, but the way this whole thing plays out and the training camp that all these guys have had, I think they end up with 4. That said, Cuevas has been asked more than once about how much pressure he feels to be able to perform to make the roster, and he said he's kind of put that out of his mind. I think it's worth acknowledging that it could happen that Cuevas gets left off. He becomes, one of your practice squad guys, and you find a role for him down the line. But with the way that we have it playing out, I think 4 tight ends can make sense for this group, especially in a versatile Declan Doyle offense. Now, if you had a 7th receiver who was doing a lot of really great things that you felt really confident in, if you felt the need for a 3rd quarterback, if you felt like, okay, we like the 2 QBs, 4 running backs, 6 receivers, but we really want a 10th O lineman, then you might pull out a tight end. It's like, where are you going to pull? Where are you going to drop? Where are you going to move around? And, I think with the way we have it playing out, and injuries and movement kind of all plays into this, 4 tight ends probably makes the most sense at this point.
Yeah, I was going to say the 10th offensive lineman, I think, is, as we'll get into in a minute, the one area where they might take from another position group, and Cuevas being a 5th-round pick, somebody who potentially they feel like they could get onto the practice squad there. That would be showing a lot of faith in Hibner as the only backup tight end, in this group. Somebody who certainly has some work to do in development-wise on the blocking side of things. But if you feel really good about Smythe and Andrews as your top 2 and your 2 tight end sets, maybe you feel like you can sneak Cuevas onto the practice squad and get that extra O lineman, especially with kind of the uncertainty there in this group. Let's talk O line. We got 9 here, as you mentioned. Run through the names from left to right in terms of the starters. It looks like we'll have Ronnie Stanley at left tackle, John Simpson left guard, Ethan Posich at center, Venga Ioane right guard, Roger Rosengarten at right tackle. That is the starting group as it looks right now. Posich still in competition with Jovan Gwynn. Maybe there's some Jovan Gwynn working his way in early in the season. We'll see. But I went into camp thinking it was going to be Posich. I'm sticking with it. Other guys in this group, Andrew Voorhees, the much maligned offensive guard, Emory Jones Jr., who kind of rotates between guard and tackle, and Carson Vincent, who is a swing tackle himself. So that is the 9 right there, with Danny Pinter on season-ending IR. Corey Bullock maybe is the name to circle if they do go to 10, a guy who has played both guard and center, who was mentioned as part of the center competition when they let Tyler Linderbaum walk over the offseason. He maybe is the odd man out if they go to 9.
Just to go back really quickly, and I agree with everything you're saying, but that seems to be the big question. I feel like I keep getting asked, whether it's just at practice or on radio hits, is like who's going to be the week 1 starter at center. And the thing I keep coming back to is that's a very different question than who's going to start more games at center for the Ravens in 2026. I think as of right now, it's trending toward Jovan Gwynn is going to be the one more ready to be the starting center in Indianapolis week 1. I think Ethan Posich is the long-term answer at center. And, once he's both cut up to speed and they feel like he's fully healthy and ready to go and they can plug and play him, there's the competition for him to take over. And it makes things a little more interesting when you're kind of down to the 2 guys. So assuming health, we have them leaning 9 here. Emory Jones Jr. is someone that, a former 2nd-round pick that they feel the need to get a lot out of. You spend a lot of draft capital on a guy like him, and he's also someone who can play a couple different positions and has swung from guard to tackle at times through our training camp. You have Carson Vincent is your tackle depth for Ronnie Stanley, and then you have John Simpson, Venga Ioane is your starter. John Simpson, Andrew Voorhees probably makes his roster by nature of the fact that he took a pay cut. That obviously will play significantly in his favor. But they always talk about when you have an offensive line, do you go 9 guys, do you go 10 guys, and how do you sort of play around with that group? And the answer that coaches always give is, you're just going to find a way to play your best 5 guys. Assuming health, I think this is the group that makes the most sense. And the only way we might be having a different conversation is if Danny Pinter was still healthy, because at that point, you're looking at a much more significant 3-center competition, and then the question of whether Jovan Gwynn or Ethan Posich might be able to slide over to a different spot, and where you go with that. Corey Bullock has played center. He's repped at guard a little bit in training camp. Once he came back from the non-football injury, and they started kind of the center competition was down to 3. But I think at this point, again, like the way the roster plays out, with these guys, you don't have anyone else in the building who you feel like is ready to immediately challenge for a starting spot. You're more comfortable with this 9 and a 4th tight end as opposed to Corey Bullock as your 10th offensive lineman and 3 tight ends, or a 10th offensive lineman and Adam Randall or Rasheen Ali getting left off to the practice squad. You can keep a guy like Corey Bullock on the practice squad. You have those elevations. And if someone gets hurt, you can find ways to change. But going into the season, initial 53-man roster, just the way things have shaken out, the health of this team, and where guys have sort of played above the level of other guys, I think this 25 for the offense is what makes the most sense, which is why our esteemed colleague Josh Tolentino has his offense at this 25 for his initial roster projection.
Absolutely. An offensive group that has lots of potential and lots of expectations coming in with Declan Doyle overseeing this offense. We will not be seeing any Lamar Jackson here in the preseason, so hard to evaluate too much of that. Before we do get out of here, I know we said we weren't going to talk too much of joint practices today, Sam, but I do just want to ask overall impressions of the offense on the first day of joint practices against the Commanders.
Yeah, they looked sharp. So I was kind of going back and forth between the offense and the defense a little bit. Everything I saw from the offense, they looked fairly sharp. And to go back to our wide receiver talk, Rashad Bateman was certainly the best wide receiver on Wednesday. Without Zay Flowers, Lamar was kind of spamming, finding Bateman and Mark Andrews particularly. Bateman played really, really well in one-on-ones and then had a few nice plays in 11-on-11s. Mark Andrews looked really solid, and I think it's funny to think about where we started with the Mark Andrews discourse and where we're kind of ending training camp. Not to say he's been unbelievable, but he's looked much better as training camp has gone on, has progressed. So from the offense, I would say the highlights were that Rashad Bateman was cooking the Commanders secondary, and Lamar looked solid outside of one interception, which was a fade route to LeJontay Wester in the back right corner of the end zone with Mike Sainristil in coverage. Nothing about that sentence makes any sense from a decision-making standpoint. So I don't know what they were looking for. It was a weird, just kind of lofted throw to a guy who's my height with a very good DB in coverage. None of that really made sense. That was probably the low light. And the highlight for Lamar in the offense was he had one play, Tez Walker did not look exceptional today. He had 2 or 3 drops maybe, but he definitely the best play of the day. Crosser from left to right, kind of plucks it out of the air and breaks out into space and goes 60 yards, so it would have been a touchdown. Sometimes you never really know what a touchdown is in these training camp practices because guys can't get hit. This was one of those times that this was an explosive play touchdown. That was probably the highlight of the day for the offense.
All right, let's talk some defensive side of the ball here now, Sam. We'll start on the interior and work our way back. As we mentioned earlier, we're going to have Nnamdi Madubuike on IR to start the year, and that leaves us with 5 interior defensive linemen here: Travis Jones, Calais Campbell, John Jenkins, Broderick Washington, and Aeneas Peebles getting that last roster spot. Peebles, maybe a guy who on the chopping block this year with Madubuike coming back, but with him looking like there's a chance for him to begin on IR, Peebles would be the guy who maybe benefits from that.
Yeah, that was the big question with this group is you bring back John Jenkins, you bring in Calais Campbell, you have a healthy Broderick Washington, Travis Jones comes back, and you're hoping Nnamdi Madubuike is healthy. Assuming all health, which had never been a fair assumption over the past month, Aeneas Peebles was probably going to be the one that got left off, and I think they have a lot of faith in him long term to be a real contributor for this team. Right now, it's just the nature of the depth chart. He's on the precipice of getting squeezed out. However, Nnamdi Madubuike, as you said, we're starting with him on the injured reserve. That frees up that space. Obviously, what we saw last year was a lot of injuries and a lot of practice squad elevations on the interior defensive line. That's a position that they needed to go out and get a lot of help for. So a year or two of Aeneas Peebles in this defense, I think is something that they're going to feel more confident in, and especially early on, they're going to need that body, and they're going to feel much more comfortable with having someone like him, because I think we've talked about this before, is that Calais Campbell basically started his training camp the first time he stepped up to the podium. Like, I had these conversations with Weave when I first got here. I want to give as much as I can, but he's going to be 40 in a couple weeks. Like, he can't give you starter reps. So I think Aeneas Peebles fits into that rotation in a really meaningful way that if not for Calais Campbell's, if it wasn't for Calais Campbell being almost 40 and John Jenkins being 37, that he might not see as much time. But with Nnamdi on the shelf and 2 guys 37 and up, I think we might see a decent chunk of Aeneas Peebles, at least early on, as long as he's on this roster.
Yeah, kind of reminds me of a change of pace back on the offensive side, of somebody who can come in and give a different look, but also keep your other guy, your established veteran, more fresh. So somebody who's also gotten, I think, a decent amount of camp hype just in general. He's made some nice plays in the preseason, good QB pressures up the middle. So somebody who I just, overall, I just want to see more of, and I think that it gives you kind of some pause about maybe rushing Madubuike back. Not that they were necessarily considering that anyway, but just saying like, hey, if we put Matabike on IR, yes, does that maybe sacrifice one of our better players? Yes, but he might not be ready. Okay, at least we get a chance to see what Peoples can do here at the start of the season, rotating in with those guys.
If I can nitpick a joint practice moment, the way the joint practice are set up, there's two fields side by side. On one is Ravens offense versus Commanders defense, and on the other is Commanders offense versus Ravens defense. And I was walking over from the Ravens offense side to see the Ravens defense, and I was kind of at the midpoint between the two fields. And the first play I saw, because I'd seen Josh tweeting out about the defense playing pretty well. Trey Hendrickson had a couple really nice plays. That interior defensive line teamed up for a couple nice plays. First play I see when I get over there is Aeneas Peebles right in Jaden Daniels' face, and you can't hit him, so he blows through the line, and he kind of spun off him knowing he had that sack. And Jesse Minter was really excited. There was some, he was really animated to see Fub get a big play like that. So he's had a good camp. Again, I'm nitpicking one play from the day, but he's certainly someone that I think has shown enough to at least compete on the edge of this roster.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to outside linebacker, where we have 5 guys here on this list: Trey Hendrickson, Tavius Robinson, Mike Green, Zion Young, and Ethan Burke, undrafted free agent, making it over Adisa Isaac, which is maybe one of the bigger surprise camp battles here as things have gone on. Burke really forcing his way with several big plays, particularly in the last preseason game against the Vikings, but has continually made waves at camp, whereas Isaac kind of has the draft capital in his favor, 2024 third-round pick. Sam, which side of the Isaac versus Burke wars are you on?
I lean Ethan Burke. Just because of what he can give you on special teams. And I think at a certain point, if you're the Ravens, they really want Adisa Isaac to work out. You spent a third-round pick on him. He's a Penn State guy. That favors good fortune, good favor, and Eric DeCosta. But at a certain point, you have to give up. At a certain point, you have to ask yourself whether he's going to work out long term. A great guy who's played solidly in fits and starts, but just has not put it all together in a meaningful way that should earn him a real spot on this roster. I think that if you can keep him around in the practice squad and find a way to get him reps, and maybe going somewhere else and maybe getting a fresh start might be the best thing for his career. He's looked pretty solid in training camp so far. He did last year as well before getting injured. I think he had a sack in a preseason game last year before getting hurt again. He had a pick 6 in one of the preseason games that was called back. Think he had a forced fumble at one point in training camp. He's had a few moments. And again, if you're the Ravens, you want him to work out, and you probably like to keep him on the 53 and let Ethan Burke be on your practice squad. I just don't know how much confidence they really have in him long term, in his ability to go play right now, right away. And that's a revamped new look edge room. With Trey Hendrickson and Mike Green and Tavius Robinson and Zion Young, who we mentioned I think earlier in the episode that he has not practiced this week, and Jesse said that is something minor. He should be ready for week 1. He's more worried about his health today than his health for the third preseason game. So certainly the most interesting guy to have the conversation about because of the repetitiveness of who's going to be the UDFA to make the roster. Right now it's Ethan Burke. If there's going to be a UDFA to make the roster, it's him. In joint practice today, his special teams contribution is really what's going to earn him a spot on the roster as a UDFA. And he had a moment today where on kickoff team, he pancaked a commander, and in doing so, put 2 other players on the ground. It was like dominoes. He knocked one over and then took that guy and pushed him into 2 other guys. And suddenly there were 3 commanders on the ground, only Ethan Burke standing. At his size, with his strength, I just think he gives you more on special teams. And if you're looking at someone who could be an immediate impact, I lean Ethan Burke. I think the Ravens would probably go in favor of Adisa Isaac as long as he's fully healthy. Personally, I would say Ethan Burke. But at the end of the day, I think they do go 5 edge rushers.
Yeah, you have to feel for Isaac, who has really been has had his career just dominated by injuries so far, limited to 4 games as a rookie in 24 because of a hamstring, and then elbow injury knocks him out for all of 2025, even went into this year on the PUP list with that same injury. So a guy who just has not been able to stay on the field. But Burke, who, listed at 2 inches taller and 15 pounds heavier than Isaac, with those kind of intangibles that we've seen from him, does maybe start to feel like he has the edge here over Isaac, who could benefit from, now that he is fully healthy, starting the year on the practice squad and just getting more reps and things like that to kind of further his development that he's really missed out on to this point in his career.
A perfect comp, or maybe in terms of path, not in terms of player, in terms of path, Keandre Jackson started last year on the practice squad, very quickly worked his way onto the roster because of his contributions on special teams. If Ethan Burke does not start the year on the 53-man roster, by week 3, maybe someone who contributes regularly on special teams gets hurt, and Ethan Burke is probably your first call. So I would say that him, even if he doesn't make the 53 because they go with Adisa Isaac, do not count out his ability to play in some capacity this season, because Keandre Jackson, again, was called up a few weeks into the season, and I think he had a forced fumble at one point on special teams, and he became like the face of their special teams and the face of UDFA guy who they kept on the practice squad, were able to elevate, and he was able to make an immediate impact. And now he's playing his way onto a pretty obvious spot. I think a pretty obvious spot on the roster.
All right, inside linebacker, we got 4 on here. Don't think we have to spend too much time, as it's a pretty solid 4 here in Roquan Smith, Teddy Buchanan, Trenton Simpson, and Jay Higgins the 4th. You got Trenton Simpson as kind of the backup weak side linebacker to Buchanan, who coming back off of the season-ending injury, was ACL, correct? Last year.
Yes, correct.
For Buchanan. So if Buchanan, for some reason, not ready to go or not ready to maybe take on a full workload right away, I think we see a good amount of Trenton Simpson, while Higgins has a pretty well-defined special teams role. So I think this 4 is pretty much locked in.
Yeah, no issues here. Jay Higgins suffered a concussion in the first preseason game. Came out early, was back by the second. Another UDFA from last year, and I think they feel confident. They want a 4th linebacker by all accounts. You have a good mix of 3. I think you want a 4th who can contribute on special teams particularly. So if they're going to keep a 4th, it's going to be Jay Higgins at this point. They signed Michael Barrett, who played for Jesse Minter at Michigan, and then he was with the UFL before this, and they just signed him on Wednesday. But maybe he's a practice squad guy that, for sake of depth and injuries happen, that he's someone you want to keep around. But Teddy Buchanan playing toward hopefully getting back on the field and ready to be full go sooner rather than later. He's been participating in practice, but the expectation is that sometime shortly into the season, hopefully we'll see him back on the field. But I think that's a pretty secure 4.
Awesome. Moving into the secondary here at cornerback, we have 7 corners for the Ravens, which still feels like there are guys on the outside looking in who have been making cases for roster spots as well. Nate Wiggins, Marlon Humphrey, Chidobe Awuzie, TJ Tampa, Keon Martin, Chandler Rivers, and Bilal Cohn are the 7 that Josh has here in this group. That leaves out Robert Longerbeam, Ladarius Webb Jr., Amani, I can't, you got to do this for me, Sam.
Amani Oruwariye.
I'm leaving that to you. And Marquise Robinson as well. Names that we have seen floated, even if I can't pronounce all of them, as potential guys at the end of this roster. Chandler Rivers, back-end draft pick, who, how I guess, solidified do you feel like this group is, Sam, particularly on those last couple of spots?
Yeah, I think this group probably makes the most sense. Bilal Cohn, someone who got hurt, left practice early on Monday and did not practice on Wednesday. Jesse Minter said that he might be able to go on in time for the preseason game, but someone who has looked really solid in camp. So if he's healthy, he's going to be your guy. So I think that's a pretty fair look at this group. I don't think that there should be any questions unless injuries pop up in this final preseason game. That's probably the group you feel most confident in.
Yeah, and then with 3 fifth-round picks, Chandler Rivers, Adam Randall, and Josh Cuevas, potential for all 3 to make this roster here. Just a good how you kind of want to go with your day 3 draft picks, making sure all of them are making the team. with Rivers there, somebody who they feel like they can develop. So interested to follow along for him. And then let's close things out on the other end of the secondary with the safeties. We have 4. Kyle Hamilton, Malachi Starks, Jaylinn Hawkins, and Keandre Jackson. Keandre Jackson, who has been a special team standout. Josh and I had a nice conversation about him on our last episode. But obviously with his special teams contributions there, you feel pretty good about that group of 4.
Yeah, special teams, but that was him last year, and he's going to continue to do that this year. I mean, he's probably the most beloved player on that special teams unit, it feels like. But this training camp, he's really showed some stuff as at playing at safety and playing in coverage. He's forced multiple fumbles. He's looked really solid in coverage. I'm not sure necessarily that they're going to find ways to give him a ton of playing time, but don't be surprised to see him, because we didn't really see him basically at all out there at safety or get many defensive snaps. I don't have the number off the top of my head of how many reps he would have gotten last year, but special teams is the reason he's a lock to make this team. What we've seen in training camp is a fair reason for why we might see a bit more of him, playing some defensive reps. So the one, I guess, thing that I'd maybe think about at large with this defense is like, maybe if Bilal Kone's injury is a little worse than you think, do you add, like, where would you add or pull or bring back? I think you probably just take replace with a different cornerback, and it's off the top of my head, I would think it's Amani Oruwariye, just because Eric Costa likes to compare cornerbacks to
Or maybe
sports cars.
Matabike is ready to go, and you go with 6 interior defensive linemen.
Exactly. So would you pull out Aeneas Peebles? Would you pull out Bilal Kone? Would you, like, these are the kinds of roster gymnastics the Ravens are going to have to play. Obviously, if nobody's healthy, he's going to be on that list. So the question is, like, would you rather have Aeneas Peebles based on the rest of your interior defensive line? Would you rather have Bilal Kone based on the fact that cornerbacks tend to get hurt pretty often, and maybe aren't always the most sustainable position, and you're going to need some real depth there. So those are the kinds of questions the Ravens are going to be asking themselves over these next couple of days. And knock on wood, hopefully they stay healthy getting through their final preseason game. But like, if there are injuries, which do happen, that might help make some of these decisions a little bit easier. But right now, what we have with this roster layout is a 25-25-3 split. That last 3 going to Tyler Loop, Ryan Eckley, and Nick Moore, your kicker, punter, and long snapper. So, yeah, pretty good list if you ask me. I think it's perfect because it's ours.
No notes, even though we have lots of notes that we've just gone through.
Yeah, and they get just to kind of wrap one other thing, like, they get a second IR stint. So if any of these other guys are hurt or they feel like are just not ready for the start of the season and they want to put them on IR to start the season, meaning they'd have to miss the first 4 games. Right now, you're not looking at anyone in that category. I'm looking over this list. None of these guys have any kind of meaningful injury in any way. So that's a good thing. But you do have a second spot. If one other person gets hurt and you want to put them on the IR to start the season, you can kind of backfill, and that'll be another obviously interesting question. Like, it doesn't sound like it's anything major, but Zion Young's a perfect example. If Zion Young is going to be maybe a little bit longer of an injury, you don't want to really rush back a rookie. Maybe you put Zion Young on the IR to start the season, miss the first 4 games, and then that solves your Adisa Isaac, Ethan Burke problem, or that's just throwing out an example. I don't think that'll happen. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. Those are the kinds of questions they're going to be asking themselves over these next few days.
Yep. Absolutely. And you can also have clearing a player to return from IR gives them 21 days to do so. So all they would have to do is sit out of practice for a week, and then you can get them right back in, designated to return, and you have 21 days to activate them from that point. So potentially a chance there maybe to ease some of these guys back in if they feel the need to. We also have one more preseason game, so we'll have to see what it looks like on the other side of that. Man, has it felt like just across the NFL this season that, like, I mean, maybe it's just me as an avid fantasy football player, but I feel like I'm seeing injuries left and right to guys, and it's almost just like, what do we even need these preseason games for, man? Let's just wrap them all in bubble wrap, get them ready for the start of the regular season, because at this point, everybody's just holding their breath and hoping that their entire rosters are healthy by the time the season kicks off.
Exactly, and the Ravens have by and large been very healthy. They've avoided major injuries to Zay
Knocking-
Flowers, to Marlon
knocking on
Humphrey,
wood.
to Nate Wiggins. Like all of these guys have gone down in some capacity and been fine. Like you said, knock on wood, they've been fairly healthy throughout this training camp, which is a nice turnaround from how last year went.
Absolutely. They're hoping to get off to a much better start this time around. All right, Sam, any final words for the good people here as we wrap things up?
Feels like I should say this on the pod for sake of holding myself accountable. I've started reading East of Eden because on October 1st, they're dropping a 7-part Netflix show adaptation of East of Eden. So it is 600 pages that I have to read between now and October 1st. My girlfriend tells me I can have a few more days into October because we can just start it late. But why would I want to do that? So this is me publicly announcing that I'm going to spend the next month covering the NFL, covering the Ravens, and reading East of Eden.
Wow, look at you. Studied man. I like it.
I wish
wish
I think
I
of
had
myself
something
as an
else.
intellectual.
I wish I had something else. I've started Mad Men with my wife, so that's
nice.
that's what I'm getting into right now. So not that I've had much time, to be honest, because we are in the stretch run of the Orioles season. Next episode, I will be recording from Sacramento, either Sacramento or Denver. I can't remember if I fly before we record or not. I have to figure that out, but I will be somewhere in the transition between two cities as the Orioles look to wrap up or continue their ongoing 3-city road trip, their last of the season with at least 3 cities. So looking forward to having coverage from there. As I said, we'll have Josh on next episode, talk about the final preseason game. We'll talk Orioles, all that good stuff. Don't forget to like and subscribe, give the show 5 stars on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you guys get your podcasts, and give us a follow at Sun Early Birds on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. He's Sam Cohn. I'm Matt Weyrich. Thank you all so much for listening, and have a good one.